Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Clee Smith. Later in the show, a pile of children.
Not exactly, but we'll check in on an organization helping kids in Hampshire County get through difficult experiences. The Child Advocacy Center of Hampshire County is getting ready for its This Little Light of Mine event at Look Park in Florence. And Kara McElhone and Alice Barber from the organization will talk about their work in the Valley and more.
And we'll take a look at a local legend you may not have realized was real. Local author Melissa Cybulski joins us to explore her book Appleseed, A Boy Named John Chapman, which imagines the early life of Johnny Appleseed in Longmeadow.
And we get to congratulate word nerd Emily Brewster, as the dictionary for which she's senior editor, Merriam-Webster right here in Springfield, has just conquered its competition to become the official companion to the AP Style Book, which does not in fact beg the question, but we'll be looking at that idiom as well.
But we haven't really had a chance to show you what we did on Monday, what lots of us were doing on Monday, that is, and get more into our somewhat eventful journey to look up at the oncoming darkness. Here's our time lapse of Monday's eclipse.
It's Eclipse Day, and we left Turners Falls, Massachusetts just after 6 o'clock to try to view the full solar eclipse in the path of totality in the town of our choosing, which was New Haven, Vermont. We are currently in Rutland, Vermont at a speedy lube because our battery light came on and we don't know if we're gonna get to the path of totality. I don't know what the diagnosis is on the car. Khalees is here, as are my sons Enzo and Pax.
Yeah, your car was doing some weird things.
Yes. I was trying to hold on until we hit the path of totality and then pull over, because then we could just watch from wherever we were. We are so close. How far are we away from it?
Maybe about like 25-ish miles, 30 miles.
Too far to walk. The good thing is we have 7 hours to work this out. So the Speedy Automotive on Route 7 doesn't do alternators, but there was a Speedy Automotive 3/4 of a mile down the street. So we got enough charge on the battery for me to barely drive it and pull it into this Speedy Automotive. Now I have called a mom and pop rental car company in Rutland who are coming to pick me up here, where they're gonna fix my alternator. I'm gonna take another minivan and try to make it to the path of totality. It's 11:35 now, and after dropping my car off to get a new alternator and renting the exact same type of car.
And we knew that was going to happen. It was hilarious. While we were waiting for your car to be diagnosed, like 2 other Odysseys showed up. You left to get the car, and I think I told the two of you, what do you think the odds are that your dad comes back with another Honda Odyssey?
It has been an odyssey indeed, but here we are on the town common in New Haven, Vermont. We just got New Haven pizza from the Village Green Market, and we're just gonna wait here for the next 4 hours until the sun dies.
And hopefully nothing rises in its wake.
Yeah, the important thing is we made it. We persevered, and I still don't know how much it's going to cost for a new alternator, and I really hope it's done by the end of the day today, because I only rented this car for 1 day. Well, you got to keep playing it. I came over to record specifically that. The eclipse has started, and we are on the town common in New Haven, Vermont, and of course, Bonnie Tyler has joined us. Where are you all coming from? What's your name?
I'm Kamali, I'm from Brooklyn.
I'm Gail, I'm from Cambridge.
Cambridge, Mass?
Cambridge, Mass,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know where we are. New Haven, Vermont seems
Yes.
like they should have great pizza here, but they don't. Well, I'm glad you brought the Bonnie Tyler to kick the eclipse off right. All right, we're about 25 minutes away from totality, and it's already feeling a lot darker.
The light is very, very weird. It's like gray. It seems like it.
Seems like the world is about to die.
Well, it's like when a thunderstorm's coming in and everything gets kind of like weirdly dark.
Yeah, except sometimes that turns like green or yellowy.
Right, and this is
kinda
just gray.
It's kind of sad.
I think it's exciting.
It is exciting.
The world is about to end.
We did decide not to see this in a cemetery.
Right,
That
I feel
was
better
a good
about
choice.
that decision, yeah. Although the people over there were playing creepy music a second ago.
I've walked into like 4 clouds of gnats.
Me
Oh
too.
yeah, there are bugs coming
I
out.
walked into like a cloud of mosquitoes and like a cloud of gnats.
Yeah, somebody's playing some weird chimes over there.
It's like,
Knock that off.
They didn't hear you.
There's a prayer drum thing.
Oh, it's like a hippie thing. Okay, we are in Vermont. We saw a tie-dye shop on the drive here, so
We
there
sure
you go.
did. Oh, it got real dark real fast.
Oh
It's still so crazy bright out though, even with the tiniest bit of sunlight.
Whoa,
Whoa,
it's
it
so
just felt
dark.
like a wave of dark just hit.
Whoa.
It's coming.
I'm holding on to you, Enzo.
It looks like an ember dying.
It's like, yes.
Whoa.
Look, it's like everything's getting turned down on a dimmer.
Well, look over there.
Whoa. Whoa.
Okay.
Oh my That is crazy!
Oh my God! That's crazy!
Oh my God.
This is insane.
Crazy.
Oh
Oh my God, that's nuts.
Look through the glasses. Look through the glasses.
Look at you can see a planet.
Don't look
The
through the
street lights have
glasses.
come on.
No.
Let's see if we can hear the birds
No.
anymore.
No.
No.
Oh my
wait,
word.
You can see like all these stars. Like, holy crap.
And like you're the classic
What is that
ring.
dot? Did you
But there's
see
that one, I think that's a solar flare. I think
That's
we're
a
looking at a
flare.
solar flare. See that one little red thing?
Wow.
Look at, and all of, you can see like gases coming off of it. See
Yeah.
like the halo, the haze? That's how they discovered helium was a real thing. Look at how pink that thing looks
thing is
now.
so- oh my
That's
gosh, it's so
crazy.
bright.
It's about to be,
coming
we're gonna
out.
have to put our glasses
Put the
on in a
glasses
second.
again. Whoa,
Yeah.
you can. That's
Oh, it's
crazy.
so fast.
The light is turning back on and we gotta put our glasses on. That, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. That was insane. And now that it looks like the sun is rising at exponential speed.
Like
Oh,
this
yeah.
is what it looked like this morning when we were in the car.
Yeah. That was crazy.
That was crazy.
That was so cool.
It was worth blowing an alternator, that's for sure.
I thought it was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm really glad I came. I love the Corona.
It was more amazing than I thought it could be. Just when the Corona hit, you don't see anything through the glass. You take them off, you actually see it. And
Yeah.
I was scared.
Yeah. We should all buy some Coronas now.
Yeah, okay.
So the eclipse was Monday, April 8th, and now it's Tuesday, April 9th, and we are back in the middle of Vermont in Rutland, right near the Speedy Lube and Service, because this is where you came to rescue us yesterday afternoon, my wife, Profesora Belmonte, when our car's alternator was not ready down the street from here. Are you so excited to be here the day after the eclipse?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful day to sit in the car for 4 hours.
Do you wish that you came with us to see the eclipse now?
Well, we would have been in a worse conundrum, I guess, but it does feel like quite a bummer to have made the decision. It wasn't easy to decide. I'm going to avoid the traffic and the traveling and enjoy a peaceful day at home by myself. So I did all the crappy parts without actually seeing the eclipse in its totality.
Well, the kids saw it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Ain't no sunshine when she's gone.
So I have to say that so I have a friend who works for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and
Cool.
he DJ'd their solar eclipse because they were in the path. And this is the song that came on during the eclipse itself.
Perfect. I love Bonnie Tyler and Total Eclipse of the Heart, but we kind of did that to death.
Yes.
A huge shout out to Starbucks in Rutland, Vermont, which became our home away from home.
We played so many board games there. I'm so glad that I brought so many to keep us occupied
And
in
then
all
when
the extra time.
When we drove back yesterday to get the car, we could have gone anywhere in Rutland, Vermont, or anywhere on the way. And I was like, no, let's just go to Starbucks again.
It's where I feel
Turn
comfortable.
right back around. Huge shout out
Turn
again.
around. Go back to the Starbucks.
That's exactly what I did. Yes, it was an incredible experience. And I want to say thank you, first of all, to Khalees Smith, who was like, you know what we should do is not come to work in Springfield that day. We should go to the path of totality. I'm so glad I listened. It was awesome is a word that gets thrown around frequently, but it was the truest meaning of that awe.
Indeed.
It was, if not evidenced by the fact that the crux of that segment was
It's
a
just
woman
screaming.
going, ah! And then all of us screaming for I spared you the duration of the entirety of totality screaming. But
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that they were just screams for like the entire 2 minutes of it being covered, of the sun being covered by the moon.
Yeah, it was pretty great. Well, our regular Wednesday guest also experienced the path of totality.
Which begs the question, will we talk about her eclipse experience?
Is that how you use the phrase begs the question?
It does beg the question. We'll talk about that phrase and more.
And later, Johnny Appleseed turns out he was real.
And from here in the 413, and we'll talk with local author Melissa Cybulski about Johnny Appleseed and her new book, Appleseeds, A Boy Named Johnny Chapman.
But up next, letting a little light shine for Hampshire County kids who've experienced abuse.
And what the Child Advocacy Center of Hampshire County is doing about it.
We'll hear about the This Little Light event happening at Look Park in Florence tomorrow when we speak with Kara McElhone and Alice Barber.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Every year in April, to raise awareness of Child Abuse Prevention Month and to commemorate the children they've served over the years, the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County holds a Luminaria event throughout the community.
Folks gather at Child's Park in Northampton when it's not raining, but in the Garden House at Look Park when it is, to show support of safety, healing, and justice for all children. The Luminarias are sponsored by individuals and businesses and are displayed at the park, the courthouse, and local businesses in the greater Northampton area.
Joining us from the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County is their executive director, Kara McElhone.
As well as author, advocate, and child therapist with a specialization in trauma and early childhood, Alice Barber. Alice is a volunteer with the Child Advocacy Center and is my Kung Fu training buddy.
Yes, we are.
Monty plus Alice equals
Malice.
Malice. Yes, that's our Kung Fu Wonder Team Power Activate name.
Proudly.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
Are you going to have like uniforms, one with an M and one with an A like Team Rocket?
I like that. And it'll say Italian Shaolin on the back of mine. Shout out again to Morgan Cantor.
I still don't have a name.
Yeah, you need to come up with one. But we're here to talk about the This Little Light of Mine event with Executive Director Kara McElhone. And this event's been going on since 2021, is that right?
This is our 4th year, that's right.
Yeah, and what drew my attention to it at first alludes to what was going on with the song that we heard at the beginning, which was Evelyn Harris singing This Little Light of Mine. You convinced a bunch of amazing people in our area to sing the traditional song that many, many, many folks and several traditions use, This Little Light of Mine.
Absolutely. We're really lucky to have talented people donate their time and volunteer to cover the song for us. We got Lou Barlow to do it.
Yeah, we're going to outro with that one. I wasn't going to reveal that till a little bit later.
I'm super excited.
We'll play some of the clips of some of the versions of This Little Light of Mine as we talk.
But there's a great pile of folks, including like the Neils and Martin Sexton and other folks who came forward to help out.
So many talented people. And in fact, Katrina Niels is going to perform the song for us tomorrow evening at Look Park. Live and in person.
Yeah, and as we alluded to, it looks like it's at the Garden House now because of potential rain.
Yeah, rain and luminaries is a tough combo.
Unless you want it to be extraordinarily short.
Yes, exactly. So, but we're really lucky. We're gathering at 5:30. The Garden House stepped up, as they always do, to let us pivot there last minute. And so we'll be having a gathering. We'll have officials there. We'll have an opportunity to be together and stand in solidarity with the kids that we serve.
Weird logistics question immediately. So I've seen pictures of what it looks like when it's outside. When it's inside, where do you put all of the lights? Do they just go around the whole building, or?
So depending on how hard it's raining, we're going to be in a tent that's adjacent to the Garden House, and we will line the inside, and hopefully if it's not pouring, we will line the outside going in.
Fantastic.
So the song and the luminarias are the fun part.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
They stand for something in regards to the real work that you're doing at the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County. And the first time I heard about this organization was actually through District Attorney Dave Sullivan's office, and I know he was a big champion of helping to create this advocacy center. But if people have no idea what it is you do, can you talk about this? I don't want to call it a one-stop shop, but one location that helps children after they have become victims of abuse.
And why have it as one center instead of?
Absolutely. So what we do is we bring together a multidisciplinary team to address the allegations of child abuse. So that includes people from the DA's office, includes law enforcement, DCF. We have a pediatric sexual assault nurse on staff. We have advocates. We have therapists. And the idea is you bring all the kids to one location so they don't have to retell their story over and over again. We're in a house in Northampton. It's designed so that kids feel comfortable and safe, and they can get everything they need under one roof. I mean, without a CAC, kids who are disclosing abuse often have to retell their story up to 10 times.
Yeah, you can imagine you have to tell the police officer, you're going to tell maybe a lawyer, you're going to tell this person, that person. This is just once in one comfortable environment. Where did this idea come from? Is it unique to Hampshire County, or?
No, there are CACs in every county in Massachusetts, and there's over 900 across the country. And the model looks a little different in different communities. We're a nonprofit, so we're freestanding. Some CACs are part of DA's offices, or in Hampden County, it's part of the Bay State system.
So the hospital system. Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. But being a nonprofit like we are, it means that we can provide the kind of care that we need for kids free of charge in the manner that we think is best. And again, it allows us to really provide the kind of environment that kids feel really comfortable and safe and can come back to get the additional services beyond the first reporting of the abuse.
We're speaking with Kara McElhone, who is the executive director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County. This Little Light of Mine event is happening at the Garden House at Look Park tomorrow, April 11th. One of the volunteers for the CAC is my friend, full disclosure, Alice Barber, who's one of the only people that I allow to punch in my face frequently.
Likewise.
We train in Kung Fu together. You work as a therapist day in and day out, and then you volunteer to do this for the CAC. Tell us why this is an important organization that for you to spend your time volunteering with.
So I treat primarily children under the age of 12, many of whom have experienced traumatic events. And it's tough work. It's wonderful work. And I recognize the importance of the CAC as a place that holds kids during these initial moments after disclosure. And sometimes the disclosure could happen in my office, and other times it can happen at a school or at home. And one of the hallmarks of something becoming traumatic versus quote unquote just stressful is being believed when you say something. And, kids are often given a message of, oh, it wasn't that bad, and just pick yourself back up and go to school and take that algebra test or do it, behave yourself at school. And I think the CAC is important to me because it truly validates a child's experience of this trauma and doesn't other children, and holds them through some brief treatment until then they can be transferred, if there are people available, to other therapists for longer term work.
Go ahead.
So how does your work at private practice look as opposed to the work that you do for CAC, and do they inform each other in ways you weren't expecting after starting to volunteer there?
I wasn't aware of how comprehensive the services were at CAC. My volunteer work there is really sort of light compared to the work that I do. I'm going to help set up the luminaries and things like that. Right?
So are you doing any therapy work
So
with
I'm
them too,
not
or?
doing therapy there, but it's important to me that, there's a lot of systems out there that are for helping kids, and they are so siloed. And building bridges between systems is really important to me. And so I'm able now, when I am in groups of therapists and consulting to schools and consulting to, other people doing this work, I can confidently say, this is a place that I think you should look into, or this is the next place where you need to bring your child, et cetera, et cetera.
That's Alice Barber, who is an author, advocate, and child therapist who volunteers with the Child Advocacy Center of Hampshire County, who's hosting their This Little Light of Mine Luminaria event at the Garden House at Look Park tomorrow. We know that Alice will be filling luminaria bags and lighting them, and that's one of the volunteer type things that people can do, I would imagine, for CAC. Kara McElhone, who's the executive director, what other ways can people get involved? What needs are there for this organization that is helping children who have gone through some sort of abuse to not have to be re-traumatized over and over again in telling their story?
Well, the thing that is most important is that people become ambassadors like Alice. They learn about what we do, and they tell the people in their lives who can reach out when they need help, when they're worried about a child. Part of our challenge is, folks don't really know about us until they need us. And what we need to do is build a network of people who know that our services exist, and hopefully be able to prevent and intervene earlier and earlier in the lives of kids.
Is there benefit to being a standalone nonprofit as opposed to being, say, part of a DA's office, as you mentioned some of the CACs are, or for a hospital system like in Hampden County with Bay State?
Absolutely. We have the flexibility to give the care that we want to care in the way that we want to do it. We take no insurance. We charge nothing. So there's not any outside agencies dictating how we're delivering our care services. And we know that we can bring the best of the best, these really excellent professionals together to really think about how each kid might need something different. And being a nonprofit allows us that flexibility. The downside of being a nonprofit is we have to fundraise. And we don't have anybody else paying for our electricity. So we really rely on events like this to help us raise money, to let the community have an opportunity to stand up and with us and say, this is not okay in our community. Our kids deserve better. And we've been really fortunate. We have an incredibly generous and supportive community that we live in, who have helped us raise over $50,000 for this event that's happening tomorrow.
Is it only fundraising that allows you to reach your fiscal goals, or are you eligible for grants through the state and federally also?
Yes, so we get a number of grants that we apply for, private grants, public grants. We have some funding from the state. Hampshire County has some really terrific legislators who fight for our resources and are the first ones to call us and say, what do you need? What do the kids need? And we have some federal grants. We piece it together.
Outside of this event, what are some other services? We know about the children coming to CAC for initial contact and interviews and that, but what other services does the CAC provide for kids who have been through something traumatic?
So we have an on-site pediatric sexual assault nurse who provides medical care right at the CAC. So again, rather than having to go to a big hospital to get that kind of specialized care, you can come and do it right in the house in Northampton. We have advocacy services. We have a staff member who does things like online safety trainings for both for people who have experienced some violence through the online initiatives or just the community at large. If you want to figure out how to make sure your kids are safe online, what do you need to do? If you need privacy settings on your kids' phones, we're there to help with those kinds of things. And then we have a person whose job it is prevention and outreach, to work with schools to make sure that the staff and the kids get the training that they can so they know what to do.
Karen McElhone, who is the executive director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire County, about how many kids are you working with per year?
So at any given time, we have new kids coming in, and then we have kids who are continuing to come back for care, whether that's therapy or advocacy. Last year, we served 220 kids in Hampshire County, so that's more than 10 classrooms full of kids in Hampshire County alone. Which
is a tragedy when you think about it in that perspective. And you were saying that you try to get them in line for therapy if they need it. Alice Barber, I know you're a therapist professionally. There is a dearth of professionals who are there for kids, not only kids who've gone through some sort of abuse, but the tremendous mental health crises that have come, I think, especially in light of the pandemic, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's a reluctance, I think, for people who are studying to be therapists to go into work with kids. And it's not necessarily a focus of a lot of graduate programs. And I think it's not easy to talk about this stuff. And in order to do this work, I think you have to be connected to your own childhood, your own child self, and anything that happened to you when you were a child. There's a lot of extra work that goes into it. The children come with systems that are complicated. And so, my hope, I have a passion for helping newer clinicians and students choose this path because, I was at the flag raising in East Hampton, and you said how many?
Because it is, April is a National Child Abuse Prevention Month.
So we raised a child abuse prevention flag, right? And you said something about that in the recent months you've served 34 kids from East Hampton alone. And none of those are the kids that I'm seeing.
Wow.
And none of those, I think, are kids that people I know are seeing. And so everybody has a wait list, and it's really a problem.
Can we go back to the fun part now, which is the local hero rock and rollers playing versions of This Little Light of Mine? Karen
lighting
McElhone?
things on fire safely.
Yes, and lighting things on fire safely, the luminarias.
They are not real fire.
Listen, as a volunteer, I'm really sad about that.
Everyone in this room is disappointed now.
We all went to the path of totality. Your version is like the not path of totality. I'm just kidding. It's safer.
Fine.
We're just joking with you.
CAC is a safe place.
Okay, right. And we've been talking about the different versions of this song that have inspired people to get involved with it. Let's play little clips from some of our favorite musicians who have been part of this, including the founder of the Institute for Musical Arts in Goshen, who is one of the preeminent rock goddesses of all time, June Millington from the band Fanny.
I'm gonna let it shine. We're all around the world. We're gonna let it shine. Around the world, we're gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, bless the world.
Now let's hear Another local hero legend, who's glad that you're not using real fire because he had his own experience with a bad fire in his home, Martin Sexton.
Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine.
I love how he did the whistling at the beginning of that one, where he does the suck-in whistling as opposed to the blowout whistling.
That's how I whistle, and I always feel like it's hard to explain to people.
Yeah, we can watch this video and see him do it. Another local hero who is going to be glad to be coming back to the Iron Horse, I'm sure, when that opens in a month, and is going to be performing or participating tomorrow night in the event, the Nields.
Katrina Nields.
Katrina Nields. Here's Narissa and Katrina Nields performing their little version of the song.
You were born with light. You're gonna let it shine. We were born with light. We're gonna let
Cara McElhone, if people want to still get involved in this event, which is tomorrow.
What else is happening tomorrow night?
So at the event?
Yeah, besides the lighting of not fire candles.
So at 5:30, not fire candles. At 5:30, we're gathering under the tent. There'll be the mayor of Northampton will be proclaiming this April Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. We will have some presentations from some local officials. You'll get to hear me talk again, and we will speak about the real need in our community to raise awareness. We will have some student dancers. We will have Katrina Nields perform the song. And really the point of it is to be together to acknowledge this important month and to let kids know they're not alone.
Is it too late to get a luminaria?
No, come at 5:30 tomorrow to Look Park. You can take a luminaria home with you.
Oh, nice. Then you can put whatever you want in it.
No, you're putting. Yeah, listen. I think I made this clear.
We know you want us to be safe,
Yes.
but pyromania is real.
Well, it's a wonderful organization that's here for a terrible thing. And Alice Barber, you're one of my favorite human beings in the entire world.
Likewise.
And I'm so glad to welcome you to the studio and that you're volunteering to help this organization, using your expertise and going above and beyond as a child therapist to volunteer with the Child Advocacy Center of Hampshire County, and Cara McElhone, who's the executive director of the Children's Advocacy Center of Hampshire
Wrangling
County.
all of these kittens for good.
Yeah. Including the kittens that we know of as the local hero Roxine. So let's play a decent chunk of the one we were both mostly excited about when this happened years ago, the Lou Barlow version of This Little Light of Mine. Where can people see these videos?
That's such a good question.
They're on your Cara McElhone YouTube channel.
Okay,
that's where I found them.
They're also posted to our website, which is I'm having too many W's. CACHampshire.org. You can go learn more about what we do, how we help kids, and how you can get involved.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
On the way, we'll peek into what Johnny Chapman, a.k.a. Johnny Appleseed's early life in Longmeadow, might have looked like with author Melissa Cybulski.
But up next, we'll hear how word nerd Emily Brewster enjoyed the path of totality herself, but in French. And we'll beg the question, what is the correct way to use the phrase, beg the question?
That's one way to do it for sure. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Let it shine, let it shine.
You saw it too, right, Emily?
Yeah, we went to Montreal. We just made a vacation out of it. It was great. We drove about an hour south and west of Montreal. We were aiming for like the longest period of totality that we could get. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Got to see like the 360 sunset, and yeah, it was a strange experience.
Yeah.
That is crazy! Whoa!
Oh my God!
Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. It's been a busy week for all of us as we all experienced totality earlier this week, but it's been a big news week before we get to our actual topic for Merriam-Webster, in that Merriam-Webster is going to now be the official dictionary of the Associated Press. There's a story on NEPM's website by our news director, Sam Hudsick. Merriam-Webster scored a big win in the publishing world. The Springfield, Mass. Dictionary poised to have greater influence over language decisions made by news reporters and editors across the country. If you're not familiar with the AP style guide, it tells you not to capitalize the W in Western Mass, even though I like to do that anyway. The thing that I think is funny about this is that Peter Cybulski, our jazz host and Merriam-Webster editor, is quoted extensively in this. And Khalees, you noticed something in particular that was interesting about Sam's story when he tried to reach out to the previous dictionary that the style book used, Webster's, no relation, New World College Dictionary.
It's that Webster's New Dictionary doesn't actually have staff. So we reached out to Webster's New Dictionary, who has no staff, and no one was available for comment, or no one has replied for comment, and I wonder why.
It's hilarious. Peter Cybulski quoted in there, that dictionary has not had staff in more than 15 years. So what's happened is it's sort of floated away into the distance without entries for new things like gender pronouns, or even do you hyphenate ceasefire.
It hasn't been updated in 15 years.
Yeah,
that means it's now an artifact.
A bold move, Associated Press, to move to this incredible dictionary that does amazing stuff week in and week out from a dictionary that hasn't had staff in 15 years.
Although, it took you 15 years to realize that nothing was being updated.
It begs the question, Emily Brewster, why it took so long. But we won't make you answer that question. We will make you answer questions about the phrase begs the question, which is the topic we will be discussing today.
Thank you, Monty. Yes, begging the question. Now, you just used the phrase beg the question to mean to elicit the question, to inspire a question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that is by far the most common way that beg the question is used. But there are some people who despise that use and don't think it's correct at all.
They're probably using the dictionary that hasn't had somebody at the helm for 15 years there, the Webster's New World College Dictionary.
Or, any of those other earlier dictionaries that still aren't being updated.
Yeah.
I question if it was really 15 years. Anyway.
Well, according to NEPM's reportage.
Okay, right. Who am I to question that?
So, yes, I have come to understand that I think that people get upset when people like me use begs the question in that particular way. How do those people like to use the phrase begs the question?
Well, for a long time, people considered the only correct way to use the phrase beg the question was to use it to mean to ignore a question or issue by assuming that it has been answered or settled. Mm-hmm. So begging the question would be, like ignoring one. Here's an example from The Atlantic by Wendy Kaminer. Rich parents send their daughters to all-female schools. Why shouldn't the daughters of the poor enjoy similar advantages? That's an appeal bound to elicit sympathy, but it begs the question of whether the daughters of the rich benefit from single-sex education. Perhaps they benefit merely from being rich and attending elite private schools with favorable student-teacher ratios and superior facilities and curricula.
I have to say, this is, instead of the way that Monty was using it earlier, this is the way that I am more accustomed to using the phrase.
And
really?
Even when I hear it like that, it seems like such a subtle nuance that I can't even really differentiate how it's that much different from the way that I used it. So explain for a dummy like me, please.
Well, it's not saying this raises the question. It's saying that this assumes that this question is not even important. So it's kind of an opposite, really, right? It assumes that this is not even something we're going to address at all. This has already been settled. Now, the phrase itself comes from formal logic. So a 16th century translator of Aristotle took Aristotle's phrase petitio principii and rendered it in English as beg the question.
I would have rendered it as Little Prince. Petitio Principi? I didn't know that book.
Little Prince in outer space.
Then we would be talking about something different, for sure. But as there's a linguist named Mark Lieberman, as he has pointed out, a better translation of this would have been to assume the conclusion. That's what begging the question was or is in this logical fallacy sort of statement. So, for example, if we have a sentence like, if left to themselves, children will naturally do the right thing because people are intrinsically good. That statement tries to prove that children are going to do the right thing by using the unproven assertion that people are intrinsically good.
Have they met any children? Just
Well,
kidding.
my children are intrinsically.
I think mine are too. Most of the time.
But does that make sense to you what that logical fallacy is?
For sure. Go back to the phrase from the Atlantic about the rich woman and going to the all-girls school and replace it with assume the conclusion. Is that
okay?
Able
well,
to be done?
Right. So here we're saying, like, rich parents send their daughters to the school. Shouldn't poor girls have the same advantages? But that begs the question of whether the daughters of the rich benefit from it. So the assumption is that the single-sex education is what those daughters are benefiting from, but it may be these other things that they are benefiting from.
I.e. money.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So that's a safe assumption.
I mean, I have so much to say about that phrase and how, like, the question of money itself, when brought up in these contexts, is something about which you would beg the question because it's assumed to be inherent in whatever situation the rich involve themselves in, and why would money even become the question, right?
Yeah. Right. Okay, here's another example. This is from Discover magazine. The notion of a homunculus, a little man inside the brain who watches the world on something like a little television set, is hardly an explanation because it begs the question of how the little man himself is able to perceive things. Concealed in him must be an even smaller man who watches an itsy-bitsier TV, and so on ad infinitum.
What kind of crazy sci-fi are you reading, Emily Brewster?
I mean, it's Discover magazine. It is from 1987, so who knows what they were thinking.
Yeah, wow.
Tuck's about to get a new destination. Inside Jack Putter.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm possessed!
Now, Jack's got twice the problems.
Well, and the example is from 1987 because this use of beg the question is really, it's just not common. It really isn't. Beg the question has taken on this whole new life. And it has meant that the word beg has also developed an alternate meaning because in what world does beg mean, beg the question means raise the question or elicits the question.
Right.
That's a bit of a stretch. Like that phrase did something to the word beg so that we now also have beg appearing in phrases like this begs the issue of blah, blah, blah. It means that it raises the issue.
That makes sense, though. Like you can think of begging as like, please give us this issue.
Yeah, well, that is how we are doing it. And it does make some logical sense, which is why it also has this function. But I think it was really introduced by this kind of twisting or this reinterpretation of the phrase beg the question. Now, another shift that has happened more recently is that we have seen people switch from using beg the question to massaging the phrase a little bit so that this is a question that begs to be answered.
Okay.
Right? And there we have a familiar use of beg
right.
that makes more logical sense. So maybe eventually that will take over. I mean, there's some linguists and writers who say that this beg the question is really a skunked term or skunked phrase because the people who know the traditional use will think that you are incoherent or worse if you use it in the newer and ubiquitous way. And if you use it in the way that is formally accepted, then other people won't know what you're talking about.
And they call that skunked in the linguistic world. It's like you left your cold beer out in the heat too long.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We have a writer named Brian Garner to thank for that term. He also has written law dictionaries and usage books, and that's his term, skunked.
I kind of love it.
That's pretty great. Although I do have to bring up the kind of obvious dichotomy between these two uses of beg also, where the one that is used for something moneyed is something that is ignored, and the one that is asking for things is more true to like the now used version of beg or the standardly used version of beg. in this
Yeah.
phrase? Like for something that wants, desire is begs in the way that we think of like beg and begging and want, whereas when it is ignored, it's a phrase referred to by those moneyed.
Right. The older use of beg the question doesn't really make any sense to us. This is why this, in some ways, this phrase only exists because of a bad translation in the 16th century.
So it's safe to assume that assume the conclusion is what we could replace beg the question with if we wanted to be more historically true to the original intent of that English phrase.
Yes.
But we should also not care because nobody uses it that way anymore.
Well, I mean, except apparently me.
We could reintroduce, assume, or not reintroduce, we could introduce assume the conclusion for uses like the one in the Atlantic article and the Discover magazine article instead. And then we could continue to use beg the question as we have been. But why like begging a question? It just doesn't make sense that begging, I get the begging thing, but begging a question, I don't know.
Or you beg someone's pardon in the same way. That's kind of what it thinks like. So, you're asking for their pardon in the same way you're asking to answer this question, I guess.
But begging pardon has also evolved into being exasperation or quiet outrage.
My dad says beg your pardon all the time, and it's like apart from his Boston accent, is like the one thing I wish I had adopted into my own vernacular. I have gotten better at using "yous guys," but I do it in homage.
But like when you see somebody or when you hear somebody use the phrase beg pardon, I beg your pardon, it's often like somebody who's like, wait a minute, what was that? Or how dare you?
But when people use it in a kind way instead of saying what, which is what I do, I'm always like, oh, how classy that person is. I beg your pardon? What? See? It looks so much classier. Ain't too proud to beg the question.
Up next, the true-ish story of Johnny Appleseed.
Wait, Johnny Appleseed was real?
Yes, and although local author Melissa Cybulski's new book imagines a lot about the history of the boy named Johnny Chapman, we'll hear some of what's real about this local boy turned legend.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. Western Mass is known for its apples in some parts, and it turns out that crop would come to be the root of an American legend, Johnny Appleseed, who started out as a boy in Longmeadow named
Fiona Appleseed.
So we're not going there.
Okay.
Johnny Chapman
yes.
was his name.
Johnny Chapman will grow up to be a legend, but first, he needs to climb down from that tree, find his little brother, learn perfect cursive, and remember to put his shoes on before he leaves the house.
Inspired by new research from the archives of the town he grew up in, the new book, Appleseeds, A Boy Named Johnny Chapman, imagines the story of the boy who grows up to become the famous orchardist. Orchardist?
Orchardist.
That's, I don't know, CH is strange.
Organist.
Right. Johnny Appleseed, and we're joined by the local author, Melissa Cybulski, who penned the tale. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We were at a place where you are a museum guide.
I am.
The Emily Dickinson Museum yesterday.
Yes.
And you were the one who tipped us off to remind us that, that was the day we were supposed to be there. And, but it's appropriate because we talked about the eclipse in Emily Dickinson, and we talked about Emily Dickinson, and your Johnny Appleseed book starts with an Emily Dickinson poem. Can you read us that poem?
Yes. The poem that's sort of, to me, I got to the end of the book and I realized that this poem sort of encapsulated everything I had done, comes from my work at Emily Dickinson Museum. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and one bee, one clover and a bee and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few.
I love that.
Thank you.
And it's so fun for the Johnny Appleseed story, which many people hear about, or like you drive on Route 2 and it's like, it's the Johnny Appleseed rest area with the largest apple in New England, which is false. The Clarkdale one is definitely bigger. But we're learning about the real Johnny Appleseed through this book. Born in Leominster, which is what where the rest stop is.
Yep.
But most of his life in Longmeadow.
Yeah, I think he probably lived most of his life more of his life in Longmeadow than he did in any other single place in the country. I only sort of found that out after I did some of the research via my work with the Longmeadow Historical Society. It was the kind of thing I had heard, that I heard Johnny Appleseed was from here. There's a house in town that supposedly was the house that Johnny Appleseed grew up in. And we do a weekly newsletter series called History Notes. And I had done research just for our adult audience about the origins of the myth and was it true? And to my surprise, I found out it was really true. He really did live in Longmeadow, and I found him in 2 places in our archives. I had to go looking not for him. I had to go looking for his father because you can't really find children in historical records. But I found his father, and via his father, I found him by name, once by name and once by just note. But it's been really interesting.
Cool. Why convert that story to an early reader? This is an early reader.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's an early reader. I say upper elementary school.
Yeah.
It is sort of the bringing together of everything that I've ever done in my career. I was first a teacher, and I've always been a reader, and I've always loved history, and I've been working at museums and actually all of my adult life as well. And I came to love history myself through books when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, historical fiction books, and it just always stuck with me. And I learned that as a parent, it's in 3rd grade where local history is done per Massachusetts state standards. And I had been visiting the schools via my work at the Longmeadow Historical Society, bringing in Longmeadow history, found myself talking about Johnny Appleseed, and long story short, here we are.
None of the Appleseed part happens in this book. So is this the first of a series where we're going to follow Johnny Chapman's travails when he leaves Longmeadow? Because all of the Apple stuff that he didn't do here, right?
Yes. Interesting question. I think, the Appleseed stuff that he does here is just living his life and being a person in an agricultural town, as all of the 413 was. Longmeadow was a town with many, many farms, and just about every farm had an orchard. So this is where he came to know how apple trees worked and how orchards worked. And there's so much myth. This is like Emily Dickinson. There's so much myth and lore around who he was. And I really just brought it back to figuring out, what might he have been like as a child, using the real history and the real facts of what life was like in 1783 in our community to bring this forward.
Speaking of the real people that might have been at least tangential in his life, like there are some real figures that get brought up in this book. Noah Webster, who gets used in his school book.
Word nerd.
Yes, that Noah Webster.
That Noah Webster. Yes, that same one. And John Hancock and others. What local figures did end up in your book that are real?
Local figures, every character, with the exception of 1 or 2, are based on real people that lived in Longmeadow during Johnny Chapman's boyhood. I had a map of the street, Longmeadow Street, Route 5 now, of all the houses. We are so fortunate in Longmeadow that so many of these 18th century houses and buildings and relics still remain, and they're all throughout the book as well. I've got maps and illustrations. We wanted the kids to be able to go and visit these places and know that they walked to the same places and can visualize them. But there are so many people that are in the book that were real life as well. Everyone from, his parents and his siblings, and Reverend Stephen Williams had died the year before. And Nicholas and Phyllis were real. They occupied a different time than Johnny did, but their presence in Longmeadow was very real. So just about everything. The school teacher, the shopkeepers, those are all real names pulled from diaries and day books and town records and this map of Longmeadow.
In just a few seconds we have left, Melissa Cybulski, author, what's the deal with the tin pot on the head? Where the heck does that come from?
That is myth. I think that's lore. I think myth and lore sell stories. And when he began to be written about in the late 19th century, that was just a really cool oddball thing that people grasped onto. My Johnny Chapman is very human and very ordinary, and he is just a boy, and I've loved getting to know him, perhaps through this process, and imagining what his life might have been like.
I think it's just efficient. If you're traveling around the country, then like needing something to cook in, then you've got your pot with you.
Yeah,
there you go.
Probably not comfortable though.
Well, I hope this is the first in a series. It's a Kirkus reviewed book, which is a great thing for any
Yes,
author.
thank you.
It's
Yep,
available in local bookstores, and it's called Appleseeds, A Boy Named Johnny Chapman by Melissa Cybulski. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
This is some music created by a bunch of locals to support the Iron Horse reopening. It's John Sebastian's Welcome Back Cotter theme, but includes all of the cool folks that have played the Iron Horse. More on that as it comes
A
in.
giant pile of them, in fact. Thursday on the show, New York Times bestselling author and illustrator Mo Willems and his annual sketch show. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.